KTN News.
Well, let's now move to Parliament, where a lot of events will be taking place this morning, especially in the committees. We're now joined by our senior parliamentary reporter, Patrick Amimo, live for us from our city centre studios. Amimo, what is to expect today from Parliament?
Thank you so much. A very busy day with regard to parliamentary committees, both in the National Assembly and the Senate. In the National Assembly, we have the Public Investments Committee, which this morning will be looking into the financial statements for the Kenya Airports Authority during the year 2015-2016. These are the audit report coming at a time when we have this proposal by the Kenya Airways to take over the management of Jomo Kenyatta International Airport. It's a matter that also there is a PIC is seized of. And we've seen also just last week, Kenya Airways post a loss of 7.5 billion shillings. It's been a loss-making company. So when Kenya Airports Authority appears before this committee, then members will also be keen to see maybe the way forward with regard to the intended takeover, because when it comes to financial stability, Kenya Airports Authority is a blue chip state parastatal, making upwards of 12 billion shillings annually, and these members will be keen to see how this state corporation can move on. The other committee that will be also meeting is that of the Committee on Health, and these is arising out of a question by the Dagoretti North Member of Parliament, Sami Arati, who wanted to know the update on the recent cholera outbreak in Nairobi, where at least about several people were affected and several residential areas. We also had cases that were reported in Nairobi Hospital with regard to the cholera outbreak. So the committee will also be keen to know from the Health Cabinet Secretary on the status of the cholera, whether it is been managed and or not, because the Nairobi City County government was also putting up measures to ensure that this particular outbreak does not go overboard. We also have the committee on lands, which will be expected to meet the CS, either lands or the assistant, to clarify on the issue raised by a Member of Parliament for Magarini with regard to Sabaki Ward, where residents in Magarini are concerned about the dispossession of their ancestral land. Land issue in Coast Province is very, very sensitive, where we've seen absentee landlords and members in the Coast Province trying to repossess some of those they claim belong to their to the community, or was part of their ancestral land after they were displaced from near the coastlines into the hinterland. We also have the committee in the National Assembly that to do with trade and industry, where members will be keen to just know about some of those provisions or regulations that were put in place to change, reduce the age limit for imported cars in the country, because there was a concern that some of the cars imported into the country are beyond over 8 years in age, and there was supposed to be a reduction to ensure part of the environmental management to ensure that there is reduced pollution in the country. So members will be keen to know what the CS in trade and industry is doing to ensure that there is adherence to this particular provision on the age, when it comes to the age limit of cars cars and vehicles that will be imported into the country. The other aspect also to do, we expect the CS education to also appear before the Education Committee to answer to some of the issues touching on education, and now more so on university education, where we've seen some of the degree courses come into question, and also some of the universities that are in place. We've seen some of those measures that are being put in place to ensure that university education is value for money for both students and their parents. In the Senate, we're also having some committees. Two committees are slated to sit, and that's the Committee on ICT. And this Committee on ICT, the Senate, will be looking at the state corporation, Kenya Broadcasting Corporation, KBC, just to see the revival strategy. This state corporation, state broadcaster, is indebted, is running in debts, and it cannot service some of its loans that were given by the foreign donors. And the Senate will be keen to see how KBC can be revived, if they have any strategy to revive it, to ensure that it stands on its feet and also starts earning money for the government, instead of just being a recipient of state funds. Also, we have the Senate Committee on Tourism and Trade, which will be meeting the National Treasury CS, with regard to the privatization of hotels and sugar industries, we've had the task force on sugar. It went across the country to get views on stakeholders with regard on how to revive public millers, and there are proposals that these public millers will be privatized. So the Senate Committee on Trade and Industry plus Tourism will be keen to see these proposals of privatization of these public millers. Is something that also has generated a lot of controversy from main players on the ground. The stakeholders, the sugarcane growers are up in arms. They don't want these millers to be privatized. There's something to do with the nuclear estates, which are humongous. You look at a company like Mumias Sugar Company, which has about 40,000 acres that belong to the community. We have Mohoroni with about 70,000 hectares. So these are areas that the Senate Committee on Trade and Tourism will be keen to see how the privatization exercise will go if it's gonna be implemented. But as I did indicate, farmers are up in arms and they want these particular factories, if anything, they be reverted back to the community. And as the case of Mumias, you've seen the governor come up in arms with the management, the decision by the board of management of Mumias Sugar Company to lease some of the functions of the company. And the governor has promised by 31st of this month, he'll be leading a delegation to Mumias with farmers to protest the intent plan to cede some of the functions, to privatize some of the functions that belong to Mumias Sugar Company, which, like its power sector, produces 32 megawatts, and this particular provision on the energy generation sector is about to be privatized. So it's something that the Kakamega County Governor Wycliffe Oparanya has raised a red flag about it and told stakeholders in Kakamega County to beware of the intended plan by this Mumias Sugar Company management, because it feels this is an attempt at to steal from public or misappropriate